This is the most ridiculous thing ever.
Because you barely know
This is the
right?
most ridiculous thing ever. But again, welcome to being a celebrity. Welcome to my world.
Were you guys close? Were you guys friends or?
We were acquaintances, just like I just showed you.
Yeah.
2-3 times I've seen him, so it's...
Oh, so Diddy, you've only seen him 2 or 3.
That's what I'm saying!
The internet is in a frenzy right now. Fans are clutching their pearls, and Hollywood streets can't stop buzzing about Cuba Gooding Jr. and his so-called tribute to Malcolm Jamal-Warner. And Chile, the way this mess is unraveling, messy, doesn't even begin to cover it. Here's the tea. Word is Cuba wasn't honoring a dear friend. He was clout chasing. Allegedly, he tried to use Malcolm's tragic death to clean up his own image. Wild, right? But it gets even wilder, because insiders claim Cuba and Malcolm weren't even close when he passed. In fact, they weren't even on speaking terms. Yep, that dear friend act Cuba put on for the press. Fans are calling it pure PR spin. And the real reason behind their fallout. Let's just say it involves Diddy, some shady propositions, and Malcolm standing his ground in a way very few men in Hollywood ever dared. Now rewind for a second. The heartbreaking news first broke that Malcolm Jamal-Warner drowned in Costa Rica while vacationing with his wife and young daughter. At first, outlets reported that he tragically lost his life while trying to save his little girl. On paper, it sounds heroic and devastating, but fans weren't buying it. They asked, wait a minute, this is Malcolm, a cautious and protective father. Why would he ever let his daughter swim in dangerous riptides with no safety in place? The official story just wasn't adding up. Then came the first statement from Costa Rican authorities. According to them, Malcolm was playing with his daughter on the shore before leaving her safely out of the water and taking a swim with a friend. That's when the current dragged both men under. The friend escaped, Malcolm didn't. He was pulled to shore, given CPR, but pronounced dead at the scene. But hold on, because less than a week later, another version surfaced. This time, it claimed that 3 random tourists who all just happened to be doctors were on the beach and tried to revive Malcolm immediately. 3 doctors right there. At that exact moment, fans were like, what are the odds? And suspicions of foul play only grew louder. And while tributes poured in from fans and fellow stars, it was Cuba Gooding Jr.'s single quotes as tribute in People magazine that really set the internet on fire. He went on about how honored he was to have collaborated with Malcolm, called him a dear friend and neighbor during his early family years, and said he'd forever miss Malcolm's booming laugh and infectious spirit. Sweet, right? Touching even. Except, the internet wasn't buying it. Right after Cuba's tribute hit the press, whispers started flying that he wasn't nearly as close to Malcolm as he made it sound. Insiders say their friendship ended years ago and not on good terms. Then came the real bombshell. Their fallout was allegedly tied to none other than Sean Diddy Combs. According to a very chatty industry insider, Cuba allegedly tried to set Malcolm up with Diddy. Yes, that Diddy. The claim is that Diddy had very specific intentions and thought Cuba could play middleman since he knew both men. But when Cuba supposedly approached Malcolm with the proposition, honey, Malcolm was not having it. Furious and disgusted, he shut it down immediately, and that, insiders say, was the final nail in their friendship. But it didn't stop there. Word is Malcolm didn't just reject the offer, he kept receipts. Allegedly, he even warned both Cuba and Diddy that if they came at him again with that nonsense, he'd blow the whole thing wide open online. And honestly, knowing how outspoken Malcolm was, that tracks. Now, while Malcolm never leaked those receipts, Cuba's name has surfaced in other disturbing places. Remember when music producer Lil Rod Jones filed that explosive lawsuit against Diddy? In those documents, he claimed that on Diddy's yacht, he met Cuba Gooding Jr., who allegedly groped him without consent and wouldn't stop until he physically pushed him away. Chile, that paints a whole different picture of Cuba, doesn't it? And let's not forget, this isn't Cuba's first scandal. He's faced a string of assault allegations going back years. Between 2018 and 2019, multiple women accused him of violating them at Manhattan nightclubs, and he was dragged to court over it. So when people say Cuba struggles with the word no, they might just have a point. But let's bring it back to Malcolm Beek, because this is where his true character shines. Insiders say he not only rejected Cuba and Diddy's advances, but also turned down shady offers from other Hollywood power players. One name, Harvey Weinstein, who allegedly dangled a big role if Malcolm played along. Just like with Diddy, Malcolm refused. This wasn't a one-time thing either. Throughout his career, Malcolm rejected roles that would humiliate him or feed harmful stereotypes. He refused to wear dresses for cheap laughs, refused parts that mocked his community, and refused to play pawn for Hollywood power games. He stood firm on principles, something rare in that industry. You can see that same energy in his podcast Not All Hood, where he openly criticized how Hollywood boxers black actors into one-dimensional roles: the thug, the criminal, the clown. He pushed back against toxic hip-hop trends, glorifying misogyny and self-destruction. He wasn't hating, he was calling for healing and growth. So when you hear he rejected Diddy's Shady Millions or Cuba's alleged setup, it makes sense. That integrity was consistent throughout his life. And that's exactly why Cuba's tribute rang so hollow. Because the streets remember, the insiders know, and fans can smell damage control from a mile away. The real question is, was Cuba's tribute truly heartfelt, or just a PR stunt before more tea spilled? Because as Diddy's empire crumbles, and lawsuits pile up, more voices are speaking out. And when Hollywood insiders talk, chili, they spill. But here's the dangerous part. Predators in Hollywood don't take no lightly. And Malcolm didn't just say no, he had credibility, receipts, and a platform. That kind of resistance bruises egos and threatens power. And as we've seen time and again, that can be deadly. Insiders claim that after Malcolm rejected Cuba and Diddy, the tension didn't fade, it escalated. Malcolm confided to friends that he felt blacklisted. Projects he should have landed started slipping away. Doors closed, and roles dried up. Sound familiar? It's the same story we've seen with Dave Chappelle when he refused to play along, or Monique when she called out Netflix's shady deals. Hollywood punishes resistance, especially from black artists who won't bow down. But Malcolm didn't let that exile silence him. Through his podcast, interviews, and carefully chosen roles, he kept pushing for authenticity. He reminded the world, we're not all hood, we're not a monolith, and we deserve to be shown in complex, dignified ways. That message was powerful, but it also made him a target. And meanwhile, Cuba's own reputation was quietly crumbling. Lawsuits and rumors tied him deeper into Diddy's infamous party culture. Allegedly, he was a regular at those same freak-off events that Jaguar Wright and Cat Williams have exposed. And when Lil Rod's lawsuit dropped with graphic details of Cuba's alleged behavior, it only confirmed what many had whispered for years. So when Cuba published that glowing tribute to Malcolm, fans couldn't help but roll their eyes. Sir, weren't you the one he cut off over Diddy's mess? And now you're out here crying, dear friend. The math just wasn't ma thing. Online. People called it what it looked like. Damage control. A last-ditch attempt to polish his name before the walls came crashing down. And what did Malcolm do when Harvey dangled that big role in exchange for playing along? He gave him the same answer he always did, a firm no. That was the pattern of his entire career. They offered shortcuts, dirty deals, and humiliation rituals. Every single time, Malcolm chose integrity over opportunity, and that's why. Despite his talent, charisma, and the love he received from fans, he never hit the superstardom levels of some peers. Because those peers said yes to things Malcolm wouldn't touch in a million years. That's what made him stand out, not just as an actor, but as a man. But let's zoom out. This isn't only about Malcolm or Cuba, it's about a culture of silence in Hollywood that is finally starting to crack. Think about it. How many times have we heard whispers about executives, producers, and celebrities preying on the vulnerable? The casting couch, the secret parties, the humiliation games. It's been rumored for decades. But only now, with lawsuits piling up and insiders speaking out, is the curtain really falling? And Malcolm, he was ahead of the curve. Through his podcast, his roles, and his words, he called out the system without naming names. He refused to sell his soul for fame, and that's exactly what made him a threat to people who thrive on silence and compliance. So when fans heard about his alleged fallout with Cuba, the dots connected quickly. Here's a man who lived with dignity and principle-cutting ties, with someone tied deep into Hollywood's underbelly. Suddenly, Cuba's tribute looked less like heartfelt grief and more like damage control, especially given the timing right. As Diddy's empire was collapsing under lawsuits and federal investigations, the streets were quick to say, "This ain't coincidence, chilly." And let's not forget the online reactions. Fans weren't buying it, they saw through the polished statements. But we're not done yet, because the deeper you dig, the stranger this story gets. Which brings us to the most chilling question. Was Malcolm's passing really just a tragic accident? Or something darker? On paper, the official story was simple. He drowned trying to save his daughter in Costa Rica. Heartbreaking, heroic, tragic. But the more details trickled out, the less it added up. First red flag. The 3 random doctors who just happened to be right there on the beach, ready to give CPR, divine intervention, some said, but others, they weren't buying it. To them, it looked staged, like a script being acted out. Then came the flip-flopping reports. First it was, he drowned, saving his daughter. Then, no, he was swimming with a friend. The daughter was safe. On shore later, multiple tourists and lifeguards rushed in. Which one is it? These contradictions only fueled suspicion, and suspicion is Hollywood's favorite breeding ground, especially when the names circling the tragedy are already drowning in scandal themselves. Now let's talk about timing. Malcolm's death came just as Diddy was under the harshest spotlight of his life: lawsuits, ex-bosses, and insiders finally spilling long-buried secrets. So naturally, fans wondered, was Malcolm about to go public with his own receipts? Did he have information on Diddy and Cuba that certain people couldn't risk leaking? Because if the rumors are true that Malcolm kept records of the shady propositions he received, that's dynamite. The kind of evidence that could end careers, topple empires, and maybe even land people in jail. And here's where it gets even messier. Remember Cat Williams on Club Shay Shay, claiming Diddy offered him $1.5 million for his services? That clip went viral for a reason. If Diddy had the audacity to throw that at Cat, why wouldn't he make the same offer to Malcolm, an actor he allegedly wanted badly? And if Malcolm rejected it, do you really think Diddy, known for intimidation and control, would just shrug and walk away? Exactly. That's why fans are connecting dots loud and clear. Now, while some are diving deep into conspiracy theories, others are reflecting on Malcolm's legacy. They remember him as the rare Hollywood star who truly stood for something. The man who said no when others said yes. The actor who fought stereotypes, rejected humiliation, and used his platform to uplift his community. That's why the grief cuts so deep. People aren't just mourning Malcolm Jamal-Warner, they're mourning what he represented. Integrity in an industry built on compromise. Hollywood has always survived on secrets and silence. Remember how Harvey Weinstein operated? In plain sight for decades. Remember how R. Kelly's crimes were an open secret, yet no one stepped in until the public demanded justice. That's the pattern. Everyone whispers, but no one moves until it's too late. And that's why fans are furious now. They're asking if people knew Cuba and Diddy were running wild. Why didn't anyone back Malcolm when he stood up? Why let him fight the machine alone? Because maybe, just maybe, if more voices had spoken earlier, he wouldn't have been left so isolated. The truth about what really happened in Costa Rica may never surface. Was it an accident? Or was it something darker? What we do know is this: Malcolm Jamal-Warner refused to bend, refused to sell out, and paid the ultimate price for standing tall in an industry built on lies. That's why his loss cuts so deep. This wasn't just an actor we lost, it was a real one, a man who refused to play the game. So here's the question: was Cuba Gooding Jr.'s tribute a genuine cry of grief? Or was it a carefully staged PR move to shield himself from backlash? And beyond, that was Malcolm's death truly a freak accident? Or was it the silencing of a man who knew too much? Because if Hollywood has taught us anything, it's this: nothing in this town is ever as simple as it looks.